Choujin X Chapter 49 Part 3. Now, we finally got the translations in tonight, right? So, Master Mado has spoken, and a little bit more of the past has revealed itself in this chapter. And honestly, we getting straight to the meat and bones of it. We are getting straight into the backstory, which has been provided to us by Master Mado. So, albeit there may be a bit of a bias coming from her end, right? But what we can take away from the history of Choujin X due to consistency is that all events leading up to Queen's assassination in 1927 seem to be the most believable. Now, the main mystery concerning that period of time surfaced a couple of years back within the community, and that was whether or not Queen may have faked his death, since it had been stated that nobody really knew what Queen's true abilities were, and anyone who did discover those abilities were purged. However, when it comes to the tales told by both the Tower and Yamato, each side's half aligns with one another and paint Queen as the big bad, while Titus and Sora became the saviors. The other common event in which we know to be true is Yamato Mori's internal conflict and rift from Sora. However, the key detail that we have learned from this chapter is that the rift had begun prior to Sora's prophecy about the Dark Calamity. Now, just to reference the timeline once again, we know that while in alliance with Sora, Titus assassinated Queen in 1927. However, according to Arthur 1, Queen's death did not end the Great Choujin War, meaning the war continued on until 1946, in which the establishment of autonomous countries began. Now, the reason why this is so important is because in 1944, Sora is the one who essentially brings the war to its end when she defeats Titus in a battle sparked by a vision in which Titus became a mad king. She then continued on with a 3-year purge of Antoland lasting from 1945 to 1948, and this is due to a separate vision of Sora's in which she saw Titus supporters raising a rebel army. Now, from a certain standpoint, peace had been acquired and then brutally maintained, but according to Master Mado, once Sora returned to Yamato from her purge, the perception surrounding her had changed. People began to view her prophecies as the cause of conflict rather than the path toward peace. Now, 7 years later in 1955, Sora, who was still the head of Yamato Mori at the time, would warn everyone about the Dark Calamity. And at this point, Mado would speak up and say that she did not see this calamity. Instead, what we have is an illustration from her dream diary of what we know now as Zora in her chaos state, surrounded by her supporters of the Tower. Now, even so, Sora did not officially lose Yamato Mori until 1959, which means that the tension within Yamato was building against her for over a decade, which brings me to Mado's nightmare of Sora's brutality in Antoland. Now, Mado explains that at that point in time, she was too powerless to tell anyone about her vision of Sora, and this detail is important because it explains why Mado made her power move years later when the support for Sora had weakened. It's also noteworthy that the opinion of Sora began to shift during the years she was absent from Yamato and while Mado acted as the country's seer. However, this could also be due to Sora's continued purge after the war. Now, in terms of more general details about this chapter, I really like the inclusion of the minor dilemma suffered by Tokyo when he is discovering that his friends are planning to attend college. Now, this is just an example of the polarity of this series, where we have a main character who has these superhuman abilities, who essentially is the savior of the world, right? But he's still grounded in the sense where he's having these everyday struggles of, man, I dropped out of school in order to, achieve this superhuman strength and master it, while my friends are going off and attending college and going to be living somewhat normal lives as they too fight crime. I also really like the fact that Master Mado was picking tomatoes in her garden because it made me connect her with Ellie a bit more, especially seeing her reaction, having tears down her eyes where she sees her master Sora brutally taking the lives of those citizens in Antoland, and it makes you connect her thinking process to that of Ellie, where she's questioning whether or not is it necessary to really murder these people, these innocent people, although they may have raised a rebellion just as Sora said. However, I do find it a bit hypocritical of Master Mado because we know later down in the line of Choujin X that she too begins to realize necessary evils, as she did order Sandek to murder his own brother Batista. Now, one thing I will say, and this is my final thought, is when it comes to the prophecies, I believe Zora is the one who sees the reasoning behind the actions, whereas Master Mado only sees the process for the solution, you know what I'm saying? Because she did see Zora wreak havoc in Antoland. However, Master Mado was not able to see the reason behind it, whereas Zora sees the rebellion. Zora sees Antitus becoming a unruly king, right? She also sees this Dark Calamity, and I believe it. I believe the Dark Calamity is coming, and I believe whoever she gives that beast mark to will be the one to conquer the Dark Calamity, whereas Master Mado may be seeing the doom before the storm type thing, or the storm before the calm. But all in all, man, out of all the chapters that we got recently, out of the last like 3 parts, this one is my favorite just off the lore. They all are necessary for one another, but I really just love the backstories and getting to piece together the timeline. But until next time, peace, take care, and thank you.